to the Circulars Around the Block. This is a good one today. We have an old friend who's been on the show before. We had an AMA with Kenneth here, but today we're talking about, the topic is from learners to leaders. It's a huge topic. Web3 for tomorrow's innovators. I'm your host, David Cutler, and we have two guests here today. Of course, we know Gianluca De Novi, CEO, CTO of Circular, and Ken Mooney, who is a repeat guest here on our show. The setup is really more about not just learning for students, because you have a lot to do with students. It's lifelong learning, right? And that's pretty much what we've been talking about ever since that we started this thing. So when you say Web3 is revolutionizing learning, it's doing it in so many different ways. But let's clarify what Web3 is. A couple of high points and then get right into some questions. It's obviously blockchain, AI and machine learning, IoT, edge computing, and even 5G and high bandwidth. I'm thinking of those, if we say Web3, we're talking about those forces, and there's so much to learn around the intersection of those things and individually. So let's discuss this next generation of tools and how it's changing your world with it. But so Ken, tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you into blockchain, and how are you dealing with all these forces in your classroom?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing for me is that, I'm a professor at Suffolk University. I teach the blockchain revolution. I'm an investor in blockchain, so I put my money where my mouth is. But, when I bring a lot of practitioners into my classroom, and it's interesting how many people started in traditional finance. So that's what I did. I was at State Street. I was the chief credit officer there for 3 years and went through training programs. And ultimately, I left. I started 2 companies on my own. One was a digital lending platform. But it was funny. It was one of my customers, one of my banking customers, that said, gee, you don't know anything about blockchain? And I said, I don't even know what blockchain is. So I looked it up, and I became enamored with what I thought blockchain could do.
How long ago was that?
That was probably 5 years ago, maybe. And then I started talking to people that I knew at the school, and they said, gee, could you put a course together? Because we think blockchain could be an interesting thing for our students. We want to stay ahead of the curve a little bit. So, I put a course together, and I've been teaching it for, I think this is my 3rd year.
What's a good sign you got that from the management at Suffolk, right? That someone was there saying, hey, this is something because only half of top schools in America even have a blockchain course.
I'm lucky. Of course, being in Boston, there's half a dozen schools that have blockchain courses, but I'm lucky because the person that runs the finance department at the school is very innovative. I also teach Intro to FinTech, which is a related course. So, for them, they want courses that not only educate people, but prepare them for a career.
Yeah, excellent. So, Gianluca, welcome back to Around the Block. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with Circular these days. Kind of catch us up.
Well, everything is going very fast in this moment. I think that our audience knows that we are onboarding new projects every week. I think we are consistently every week releasing new partnership announcements and start hosting founders to our spaces and also to our podcast here. I think that things are going in the right direction because we represent that part of the Web3 that is not necessarily token, is also other applications. We are focused on decentralized healthcare and science. And so we are carrying that flag as a layer 1, and I will say things are looking great so far.
So let's connect you guys for a second, right? Traditional education is kind of falling behind and keeping up with all this. How have you kind of reshaped the tools that you're building in order to help with the education of our industry, of our upskilling our employees and our innovators? How has that been built into your tool design?
Well, you can do science or you can learn science. There are 2 aspects of the same field. Okay, so in the education, today you have to deal with new tools that we didn't have when we were students. I I barely had the internet when I was a student. I remember I was
The
connecting an
dinosaurs were
internet.
roaming the field. Yeah.
No, literally with a flip phone. That was for me my access to internet. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And today we have to deal with AI, and all the stuff that you can do. And while you have students, you have to prepare them in what they're going to do next. And you need to understand what education is not simply a certification of the fact that you learned something, because that ultimately that's the way it looks like, but becomes more and more important, the inspirational part of the education. And it's very important to have friends like Kenneth that, they come and they have their way with students and not only teach them, but give them like a vision of a path of what comes next.
Yeah, and your tool set, like the Hypercode IDE, tell us a little bit about that environment that it creates. That's what he's looking to offer students, and other people can say, here's a place that you can do
Well,
this.
it doesn't offer that specifically to students. That's one of the tools we did for developers. That developer can also be a student, and
Right.
there is like obviously a tutorial. There is everything sorted out in a very simple way. But again, we try also to offer content because we try to carry the flag and inspire students not to come to build on Web3 or on Circular for the job, but for the mission, for the passion.
Yeah, yeah. So how have you seen this passion change in education and in the students' reaction? Tell us a little bit about what that mindset is for the students.
Well, first of all, I think with students nowadays, you have to think about engagement. It's not, you need to get the students engaged. And you want them to get them networking. And I bring a lot of guest speakers in. I get them to engage with them. They link in with them. It's not just about assigning 50 pages of reading or giving them a video on something, then having a lecture in class. Students nowadays, they don't want that. They want to learn, but they want to learn in a different way. And I find that students are less likely to read about something, but I've been lucky because the students that take my class, they take it because they want to, and they want to learn. And I change my syllabus every semester. And I have different speakers, but I also have different topics. For instance, we talked about DPIN this semester, and I had a guest speaker come in about that. And I didn't do that last semester because DPIN has become more of a bigger type of thing. So I think I also have to show that I'm learning.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, when I explain something to you, don't take it verbatim that it's 100% correct. Feel free to challenge me.
My teachers never said that. I think that's great, that you're more of a curator of what's actually happening out there than knowing this is exactly what's going on.
Well, sometimes they can teach me a few things. You'd be surprised. Some of my students are heavily involved in crypto, for instance. I had one semester, they were a developer. They were writing code. I had another one that had already launched their own company. So it's pretty amazing.
That's cool. That's cool. You
It is.
Yeah. You said something interesting about either do science or learn healthcare science, right? So what is the gap between the learning and building that you're kind of?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that, just to connect with what you were saying, is that at my age, when I was a student, the first years of college, I wasn't thinking about finance. And I will say this is probably one of the best things that crypto really did, which was to carry very young people into this field, into the Web3. But then when they get there, what happens is that they see that they can succeed. They do a few trades, they can lose money, but sometimes they make money. Maybe they lose them later. But when they lose the money, they go learn. They go study why they lost the money, and that's the very positive thing, because now that's where they start learning about a number of other things and applications. So now you start from the crypto and you end up on science and decentralization and the distribution, and then you start learning a number of other things, which this is empowering students right now. Like you see early, students in college that they start a company, that they already built something. I was building robots, I was building things, but I was mostly a consultant. And I was like a nerd. I was like the rare case of someone that does business when he's a student. Now it's most of them, and it's impressive.
So you're talking about, your big thing is data integrity, right? You talk about it all the time. Now, having that as important as financial integrity, well, now you have a business.
That's the weird stuff. So when I started Circular, I always thought, we're going to start with crypto because it's easy, and then we're going to try to push healthcare because it's not that sexy, it's not that easy to sell. Who wants to talk about healthcare? Because you look at the crypto and you look at these young people that get involved. Well, first of all, now the average age in Web3 is higher, because now even the older skeptical started stepping in. But unexpectedly, people start understanding the other things. And then you say, oh, wow, there is this guy from Africa that comes to me and say, hey, I want to work with you. And I say, I can't pay you. Yeah, but I love what you're doing. You really love what I'm doing in healthcare? How this might even affect you, you want to work for free. Say, you know what? In my country, I don't have these, and perhaps this gives me the hope that one day I can benefit from this, and even my country. Then you start looking at the world in a way you didn't even expect. And you understand that the power of inspiring people, the power of pulling people inside, it doesn't matter if it's crypto. Now it becomes just the doorway to get into a lot of other things, and I think that's amazing, something we didn't have.
So it's undercurrent of what we're talking about, hope, and you're talking about passion, right? When you did the AMA with us in December, you're talking about that belief that this is an industry that will help them through their entire career, no matter where it goes and what industry it is. How are students facing challenges when thinking about Web3? I mean, are they thinking about their career at this level, or is it just another course?
Well, just to back up a little bit, at Suffolk University, I've got the support for developing this course, which I'm really grateful for. And I think that we're not just educators. I think we should be the bridge to help them with their career. So, one of my goals every semester is if students need career advice, or if I can connect them with someone, they have to work for it. They have to ask for it. It's not just something you give out. I think I want to show them that there is a career path, Web3, blockchain. See, unfortunately, a lot of them think when they start the class, I have to be a developer or an engineer or something. And there's a lot of other positions in career development and developing your career in blockchain and Web3, and they need to be exposed to that. I have 2 students that now work at an accelerator.
Right, you are an
Blockchain.
example. You're
Right.
not a developer and you work in Web3.
Right. I've got students that have started their own companies. I have a student that got a job at JP Morgan because he knew all about blockchain, because he interviewed at Onyx, which is their in-house blockchain. So when they start the semester, it's about crypto, and by the end of the semester, they know that there's more applications for blockchain. And it could be a possible good career for them.
So that's the most exciting thing about the growth, is when other sectors are getting involved with it. And it makes it safer if you're a nurse, if you're financial, if you're a marketer, and this is rising the tide, so to speak. So Gianluca, how can blockchain platforms like Circular lower the barrier to entry for these younger developers and even career shifters, so to speak?
So
And I'm talking about non-technical now.
one of the most wrong things that I hear sometimes is, oh, another layer 1. I mean, if today we went through the mass adoption of blockchains, with all the layer 1s we have, and we multiply them times 2, we will not have enough infrastructure.
There's room.
There's not enough. And going in the mass adoption with all the enterprises, because the enterprises are the doorway for the mass adoption. It's not the retail. It's not going to be the crypto. It's going to be the enterprises. It's my opinion. The way is to try to make things easy and fun. So despite these content, these marketing, this community, it's something that started from crypto. Even if we are taking a direction that is slightly different, I love that. I love the fact that you do a business, but it's not just a business. You have a community connected to the business. And that's okay if part of that community is engaged to your business because of the crypto, because another part of that community will be engaged because of the right things. And like, Ken was saying, there's not only one way to be part of this melting pot. And it's good that you have different interests, different things, and you can cover all of them. So right now, our direction is try to simplify things. And even if I had to sell solutions for enterprises and healthcare and blah, 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 a certain amount of these kids that are following, and they're probably just engaging for crypto, they will learn about healthcare, they will become healthcare professionals, they will work in enterprise, and they will know that there is another way for Web3 to be used in that environment. That is very precious, because they will remember about us as the educators, who created, that know-how for that new vertical of market.
Right.
And you have to step up and do the work.
So your ecosystem is so crucial in blockchain and Web3. You have the node operators, and you have the app developers. They all need to be part of this, right? So it is very community-based.
Again, you don't need to be necessarily a developer. Aside that today, the developer, in my opinion, is going to fade away because the AI is going to do a lot of jobs. So you're going to have a lot of architects, software architects, and then the software architect is going to give the directive to the AI. The AI is going to write the code. The coding is going to become the dirty work that the AI is going to take care of it. So, but there are many other ways. There is the sales, there is the creativity. So there is a technology. Is there another use case I didn't think about? Is there another way to use this technology to accomplish something else? So we're doing something different than other people are doing. 99% are focused on the crypto. We want to go on another way. And I will say one more time, because I love to say this, the first people who invested in Bitcoin did not invest in Bitcoin to make money. They didn't do a pump and dump. They invested because they wanted another paradigm that gave them more freedom. Can we replicate the same for science, for healthcare, where there are people that come and push because they learned, especially after COVID-19, that we need a paradigm shift also in healthcare, in science, and so on? That's the real mission of Circular.
Is that how you're talking to your students about this passion and hope and freedom? I mean, that's pretty esoteric, beautiful stuff.
It's not just about that. I think you have to bring it down to a level where they look at, how is this going to help me? They could be interested in it and want to learn about it, and it could be just an extra course that they're taking. Most of them are not thinking about a career in it. So you expose them to that. You expose them to the fact that the adoption rate is still fairly low. It's still a new technology. You expose them to the fact that the best applications haven't all been figured out yet. And you expose them to the fact that you put it in language they understand. And they get to meet all these really cool people. I have to, a big thank you to all the people that appear in my class and speak. I think I had 12 speakers this semester. I think I overdid it. But I just had the most wonderful people will come in and talk, and it could even be about legal. It could be about different platforms. I had Cubic come in, the first one, to kick off the semester. I'm just lucky to have all these people, and they see that they're real people. And sometimes they get internships from it. They get connections. They get career advice. So it's something that they say, I'm getting something out of every class. I'm not just memorizing something for an exam to get a degree. I'm getting something that will benefit me in my life after academia.
That critical thinking element is key to what you're promising your students. So you have this great network that's growing. If it's fantastic for you and for the community, but how do you help learners filter between the signal and the noise? I mean, where's that qualitative assessment of what's going on?
The signal and the noise. Well, I think you have to look at it through the lens of the individual students, and you have to try to get to know them, right, a little bit. But I think, you know what the biggest thing in teaching, I don't know if you agree with this, but it's really trust. I think you have to build an environment that people come into your classroom, they're going to get something out of it, they're going to learn, but they trust that they can say things, you know, because a lot of people, and adults included, not just, you know, young adults that are students, they're afraid to speak up and ask questions because someone will denigrate, oh, you should know that or whatever. So you create this atmosphere of trust that every time they come to the class, they learn something that's going to help them in their career or their life. And, you know, one of the ways I measure it by my attendance. My attendance is always at a very high percentage.
I never allowed my students to call me prof.
No.
And
What
that's
if
for-
they call you behind your back?
No, that's okay. But, you know, I always asked my students to call me by my name because I think that was a very good way to
connect with them. Right.
And where I come from in Italy, they care a lot about the title, and that's, in my opinion, not the very important thing. I think that the best way to succeed in teaching someone is to be able to get close enough.
Yes.
Because different personalities needs a different connection.
One of the things that I do is the first assignment's pretty easy. I write a paragraph about yourself, why you took the course, what are you hoping to achieve? Because most classes, you show up, you introduce yourself, and everyone goes around, they say a couple lines, but no one really remembers it. So I have them write that up and I share it with the class, but I also use it to kind of get inside who they are as a person, what are their goals, that sort of thing. And then, as I told you earlier, we do this midterm evaluation. I have them evaluate me in the course, because with half the semester left, I can adapt things and change things. For instance, I have more videos now than I have reading assigned, because that they prefer to learn that way.
But you said a great word that ties back to blockchain. You said trust, right? And we talk a lot in blockchain about trustless,
Right.
decentralization. That trust allows the relationship to be.
But it's different. I mean, so we need the trustless society, and that has nothing to do with interpersonal connection. The idea is that I need to have a trustless relationship with an institution, because that relationship is not a personal relationship. So if there is a group of people which I cannot identify or cannot reach to speak to, and I need these people to take care of something very important about my life, like my health, I will feel better if there is a decentralized tool in place that allows me or other people to verify that they're doing their job right. And if they're doing their job right, there's nothing to hide. And it's not about the information itself, but the fact that these people are offering the level of transparency. They can keep the data that is private somewhere, but they know that when something happens, there is a track that allows the auditors to verify that they did their job right. I think that that's the new paradigm.
So we can know that it's being accountable, so we can just be ourselves at the best possible we
But
can be.
when my neighbor, with the people I connect in the classroom, of course I want to have a trusted relationship.
Right.
That's you need to lower the barriers. In my opinion, that's the way. It's very humble, lower the barrier. Kids very often feels, and I say kids not because I want to diminish them, but because I'm old. Very often they feel intimidated, and it's for me it's like unbelievable, because I have my children. You know, they will kill me, but students, they feel intimidated, and if you want to be successful in teaching someone, and that's my opinion, I might be totally wrong, but that's my experience, you need to lower the barriers. It's like, you know, when you have the antibodies and the virus, and every virus connect with a different protein. Okay, you need to have multiple proteins for your virulent students,
Right.
So to connect with different students so that you can connect. And if you have this barrier connected with the role, in some cases that can chill out that relationship.
Yeah, it's exciting how this element can be built into relationships where it does not take away from those relationships. It's a background.
I never had a case of someone being impolite, being rude. Never. I think I've been probably the luckiest professor in the world, but I never had those kind of cases in my career.
So back to what Ken said about reward, right? What is the reward for trust? I mean, that's an interesting kind of societal kind of thinking, but I'm really asking about how you build that trust into the revenue sharing that you do with your ecosystem. Tell us a little about what your incentive is for people to participate in the circular platform.
Forgive me. He has to sell something. This guy. So
What if I watch?
we end up going back to the business aspect of
I
this.
didn't bring my checkbook, but don't worry about it. Yeah.
He has to do his
This is the
job.
only way I learn it.
But
when I hear in front of these people.
It's the same thing, you reward people with words in your live interactions in a community. You want to keep people engaged. Some people get engaged through a reward. Some other people get engaged through passion. Some other through content. It is very different for different people. Like the antibody and the viruses, different proteins. So you need to offer all these instruments for each one of them. And the reward, in my opinion, is not so much a reward, but more like an easy, attractive way to get your interest, come in, and then find out that there is much more than a simple rewards. And honestly, I've been always engaged with the community, and I have seen this firsthand. I've seen the guy joining for an airdrop and then becoming an advocate for what we're doing. And that's, I think, the most beautiful thing, because now that guy got involved, and it's not a crypto thing anymore.
Come for the commerce, stay for your career.
Isn't teaching a little bit like blockchain? You've got to do the work to get the reward,
Yeah,
right?
you have to do.
And you have
And we
to do
need
that.
you to do that work to get the reward, right?
And the reward is a lot more than what people start out thinking it is.
What about the infrastructure? I want to go back to the environments that you're setting up. And I'm thinking it's for not just your class students to be participating in these environments, but how are these environments available to the marketplace? Clarify how to get involved, I think, with Circular. I think that's the question.
Well, with Circular, you get involved like you get involved with any other project. Again, there is a community, there are activities, there are events, there is content, there are rewards, there is code that you can build. Or you can, if you are not a developer, you can find a friend that is a developer, and maybe instead of developing, you have ideas that can become valuable and can be commercialized. Anyone can have an idea on something that needs to be done and better. Actually, I tell you one thing. In many cases, developers lack of ideas. And then they meet someone else that doesn't do anything of coding, but says, in my job, I have to do this. It's painful, it's a problem. If there was a way, and the developer say, "Oh, I have the way," and that's how a lot of projects
That's what a
are
good
created.
hackathon is. You gather these different entities.
In his classroom, I wouldn't be surprised if students gather, some as a computer science background, the other as a business background, and they meet and they become complementary and they can come up with ideas and things to build. And it's very important easier for that, right? Because I think that's.
It's as a matter of fact, one of my students participated in a hackathon this weekend at BU, which was sponsored by the BBA and Ripple and Aon and Fidelity, and there are teams of university students, and I'm very happy that one of my students led a team that won first prize in the case studies. But what was better about it is when I went there, there's all these sponsors, there's all these people that are developing, there's these educators, there's all these students, there's recruiters, there's all sorts of things they're connecting. And it was good to see they spent 2 days and they had resources and people teaching them things, and they had to ideate and come up with a product and present it. And, it can be intimidating in front of a big crowd, putting all this together, creating something out of nothing and presenting it. But then I saw a number of students. I introduced them to a couple of recruiters and potential internship opportunities and things like that. So it's more about education. It's about helping them with their career.
What's interesting about those particular events is they have mentors that are across different departments, so to speak, and they make sure that each of those financial, 1-minute marketing or sales are included in these case studies and on these hacks. Is that how you teach your courses? Do you look through the adjacent departments associated with finance and accounting and those elements?
It's hard not to be finance centric a little bit, because these courses come from, most of the students are finance degrees, but there's some that are in big data, whatever. There's a kind of a concentration in finance, but I also like to expand that into other areas. Healthcare is a good one, I really think. Supply chain management.
Here in Boston is a very good one.
Yeah, healthcare is a good one. And it also, on the financial side, blockchain can foster financial inclusion, right? But on the health side, it also could make it more efficient and less costly, and everyone knows what the cost is, right? So I honestly think that the healthcare side is slowly developing, but that could be one of the big winners down the road. Although a lot of my students will want to know about, making money in crypto and decentralized finance. We cover all those things too, but I always like to have other types of applications. I mean, you could use it in agriculture. You can use it in supply chain management, all sorts of different things. But the healthcare one kind of resonates with me.
Well, you're choosing design healthcare because it's one of the critical industries. And you can, if you prove it there, you can prove it anywhere.
Well, that's not the strategy I had to do this, because that's my background, and that was the need I knew was there. So I cannot reinvent the wheel on something where there are already a million projects. So there is a need in my entire life, and that's my life mission, is to try to build stuff that can equalize the access to healthcare. I did this through different companies, and on some I had the success, on some I failed, and but that's what drove me into this. But also there is another aspect that another life lesson that I had. So I come from the middle of nowhere, the south of Italy, a small town. When I was a kid, that world was like third world. It's horrible to say like this, but it was a very poor area. And if someone would have told me one day you will teach at Harvard, I would have laughed. I would never believe this. I don't know. From here to there for me is like, I was actually telling a story a few minutes ago outside. One day I was in Florida. I was presenting a paper to a conference, and I had an entire room full of army people in their uniform, and I had like one of those moments where you see yourself from outside, and I was thinking, what the heck am I doing here? And that's the thing. When I started Circular, I knew I was going to have a lot of people telling me, why start another layer one? Why would someone use your layer one? And that's exactly that excites me.
Yeah.
You can prove people that you can get there, but you have to do the work. You don't have to start something blindly without doing the proper due diligence. And you have to do the work.
So you have to lock yourself in your basement like you did for a year.
That's correct. And I put my money where my mouth is. And
Are you sure someone else didn't lock him in the basement?
Maybe,
Yeah,
it could be.
my wife. So, so it is very important to challenge the stereotypes, and don't be afraid of playing the game, because life, it's all about that. It's about playing the game. So if you are a young student, I understood that very early in my life, and that helped me a lot in my career. Mm-hmm. You need to dare. If you want to get there, you need to dare.
That's a good line, actually. Yeah, and you have this ability to open doors when you have an understanding of these new forces, right? So I guess only about half of universities have blockchain courses right about now. I was looking it up the other day just to say, across the United States, let's say. What advice do you have to these institutions? How can you, if you were look at them, they're watching, what is it that they need to hear so they can incorporate this into their curriculum?
I think a good mixture of academics that study it, but also practitioners. I mean, I'm an adjunct professor, but I'm really a business person and an investor, and I consider myself a lifetime learner. And I'm lucky because the school saw the need to create a blockchain course. I knew a lot about it. They asked me to do it. I'm an alum of the school. But you see, I'm learning. I'm learning all the time, not only on one side with the Chain Reaction Angel Group that I'm a member of, do I get to see platforms to invest in, but by bringing people in, I'm making more connections. Half my connections, are cold calls or people I met at a conference, and I don't know them. I have a few repeats. I try not to impose on people too much. I'm networking, I'm learning, I'm figuring out how to invest, I'm helping students, and I think the mindset of the
You missed
university.
one. You're having fun.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I think the mindset of the university should be, it's okay to teach the basic core courses, but always innovate and adapt. For large institutions, hard for colleges to do that. But I like that mixture of the practitioners and the academics. The people that have been out there to do it, but then there's also a lot of academics that do a lot of research and they know a lot about it. And I think what I'd love to see at the school is that, not that it be a requirement, but that we have multiple classes in it so we can expand the population that knows about it.
Yeah, AI and blockchain and X.
Well, that's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not just blockchain, it's AI and blockchain.
And AI
That has
needs
become
blockchain so bad.
Yeah, it's...
Well, let's dig into that for a second. I think it's a really hot topic, right? And you've said it before, and I think it's a good chance. What do you see that the core value of AI and blockchain together is?
I mean, technically, people are using AI as a source of truth, but that source of truth comes from the data you feed to the AI, So if you feed the truth, you get the truth. If you don't feed the truth, you're not going to get the truth. So it's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
So then the AI has the possibility to use that data and have some reasoning and even extrapolate indirect truth. But the quality of what you feed to an AI is very important. And as we move forward, not all the AI can be generated scraping the internet like they did with ChatGPT. Some AIs will have to become highly specialized on very specific tasks. So when you want to train the AI at this point, you will have to go buy the data to train your AI. But if even one of these silos that offers you data is not high quality data, you will spend multiple millions of dollars to try your AI, and that little silos with bad data will affect the overall results. So that becomes then important that the technology, the regulation, and everything goes in the direction where the data quality is assured through a proper auditing trail.
Right.
So if I want to use an AI that has to diagnose if I need to take or not this medication or the other medication, better be trained on very high quality data because my life is going to depend on it. So it's nothing but right that regulators are starting to ask for data to be certified because that's the only way for AI to reach that level of maturity that is not only the code or the technology, but is the data that is fed.
Back to trust, right?
That's correct. So you don't need to trust the company that sells you the data by the brand, which is what we've been doing until now. If you think about until today, until before COVID, we trusted the company by the advertising, by the perception, and we learned hard way that was not the right way. So I don't need to trust the company brand. I need to trust the fact that there are the proper guardrails and tools to make sure the company is truthful and transparent.
So this is what you're dealing with, this mass of
Well,
choices.
AI is, you want the students to think of it as a tool and not a replacement for doing the work, right? But AI is just very powerful because our world is filled full of data. And it seems like a perfect match, AI and blockchain, because AI can help gain insights. It can parse through the data and produce something. But once you have the data, how do you want to transfer the data? Do you want it to be in a form that's very secure? Do you want to be this transparency? It's immutable. There's a lot of benefits to transfer. That's what blockchain is kind of about, right? It's about data. So you want to maintain the data integrity. So it seems like a powerful partnership to me, AI and blockchain.
I mean, think about if you use that data and then you produce a bad outcome because the data was not good data. But then you can hide your mistake because when they start investigating, you hide your mistake, there's no progress.
Right.
But if you cannot hide that mistake, tampering the data, there is progress because now I can see where the error and the problem is. So using the blockchain not only makes everybody more secure, but pushes for innovation because all the problems come out. You cannot hide them anymore.
And that's why people are afraid of it. They're
I don't
afraid
know.
of these truths because they got away with it before. I mean, there's a bit-
It's not totally a fear. Some people are reluctant to learn. I mean, look at me, 35 years in finance, right? And now what am I doing? I'm investing in startup and pre-seed companies that don't have established financials and whatever. But you have to be willing to adapt and change. Things not done today, they're done differently today than they were done 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, and you have to adapt with that. My second startup company was lending money off a digital platform to companies I never met. It was all off a platform. Now, I was trained to always not do it that way, right? So I think people are reluctant to change. It's very difficult. And it's not the fear of the new technology, I think. It's the fear of leaving behind what you know.
This is what you get paid for, this is what we use, and what is this newfangled thing? What do you think, looking around towards that corner, what do you think the next wave is? Tell us about your syllabus, in a couple of years. Is it including more industries? It's connecting these industries? Where do you think this is going?
I don't think it's a wave. I think it's an evolution. And I think just from looking at, I listened to 7 pitches this morning. And this one's on RWA, this one's on a new wallet, this one's on different applications, derivative trading and crypto. There's all sorts of different things. But it seems like it ebbs and flows a little bit. It's all about it's about DeFi. Then all of a sudden it's NFTs. Then all of a sudden we kind of roll back and it's about DePIN. It's become kind of a hot thing for a while. So I think there's kind of this evolution along the way. And I think we want to find out what are the best applications for blockchain. And I think Circular has come across they're on a good path, I think, in terms of the healthcare and what they've built. And amazing, I sit down and we talk about it a little while ago, and I'm just, boy, if I could just absorb 50% of this, I would be a brilliant person. So
You are.
yeah. And so it's an evolution, I think.
That's a good answer, actually. Same with you, where you see this, not predictions, but it's a little bit of a question around why you're in this with the name Circular and this inclusion and decentralization being a method for that inclusion. Tell us about where you think this is going to be going.
I mean, the reason of the name is because circular for me means the inclusion, no? And I want to try to play that card to the very maximum I can. So I tried to improve existing algorithms to try to make it more decentralized. Are we decentralized today? We're not. We are in the process. We have a certain time frame where all these things are happening, but we are putting in place all the right pieces so we're very close now to that model. But again, for me, it's more about setting an example, and then I'm sure that who comes after us will elevate that to even better heights. But I always see this as a transition and not as an arrival. I'm trying to set and deliver to the community a network and opportunities, and others will probably improve them.
So you're helping innovators through infrastructure, obviously, but also grants. Tell us a little bit about what your plan is for the opportunities for getting involved. With
We're
those.
remarking that we are this big, so we are a very tiny company, but obviously we try to push and support adopters in the best way we can. So if you are a developer and you need support from us in one way or another, we have small grants that we provide in our token or in transactions. So there are several things we can do together, but we can also use and offer our marketing for free, which is pretty good, our network.
And I think the network part's a good thing. And, you know, we, both of us have worked with Cubic Labs in Quincy to give them their profs. And they support, you know, developing a lot of these companies. And we have a lot of connections in our
Cubic
network.
Labs, when Circular was microscopic, they gave us one of
grant.
the R&D grants. We consider them our friends more.
Right.
And as we grow, we are committed to always support them. And I keep repeating this because it's genuine. So it's not marketing.
And, you know, I have two of my former students that work there, and another circular thing. So we're doing more with Cubic and Suffolk University, even a few things with chain reaction. I think what we do is it's about a community. And if we can help someone, we don't have to benefit from it. We want everyone to benefit.
It is
from
that is not a solo game. I think I posted this a few days ago. So this is a community game. The only way to succeed is to make it global. You know, you can do this on your own. So the story is that if you want to think this as a business, imagine a business like a chariot. So the more horses you can add, the faster you're going to go. But if you don't have these horses, you're not going to go anywhere.
And they have to work together, so they have to be on the
Yes.
same page.
So don't make your business your baby. When I hear like a CEO say, "That's my baby," I'm kind of scared. No, it's not. You know, if you succeed on something in the best way, then if you really love that, you can restart another business. But at least you have a success behind, you know. Create opportunities, distribute opportunities.
Yeah,
I was brought up on pay it forward, and I totally believe in that. People ask me, why do you meet with students and mentor them? I had 2 or 3 really good mentors in my life, and that's part of what I should be doing. Not should only, but I met a student that took my class. She's doing very well. She took my class 3 years ago. And she sent me a text and said, "Hey, why don't we have a cup of coffee or something?" And, I saw her after class last night. So it's those connections. There's nothing more satisfying than when one of your students hits a career goal.
It's true.
And you help them with that.
So I want to ask both the same question, but what advice would you give your 20-year-old self today?
Get out there. I was a very shy person in high school and initially in college, and get out there, do things. You hear that word network. When you have an opportunity, seize on that opportunity. At the hackathon, I'm talking to the winning team. I said, you're congratulating yourself, but there's all these potential people over here that may want to recruit you. You just had a major victory. They know your name. Get out there, connect with people. Don't be shy about that. Speak up in class. Don't be afraid to ask. Every time you have a meeting or call, have a goal. Is the goal not just getting a job or an internship, but maybe can you introduce me to 3 different people that I should know? And people are impressed by that. They're impressed by not just relying on emails or text messages or Telegram or whatever. Actually, face-to-face talking to people. Yeah. You'll find, there's a lot of potential in doing that.
Well, you go fast, go alone, go far, go together.
You're going to have to write that down.
Yes, Mr. Steve Jobs, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Oh,
what
well,
advice?
with me, when I was making the example of the CEO and the baby, that's how I was at 20 years old. That's how I learned. So my first baby was never born because so when I was at that age, I was into game engines and I was coding my own. At some point in time, I think I had probably the most powerful game engine like worldwide. It was a state of the art. I was following the hardware. It was like the equivalent of Unreal and today, but was my baby.
And you were in your little town in South Italy.
And I was in Bologna at the time,
Okay.
but it was my baby. I didn't want to give it out to other developers. I said I'm going to build a business on that. I built a business, which was very successful. But then 2009, the crisis, boom, dead. So a lot of work, poof.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's much better, and that's a very good indicator when you see that more and more people want to join the effort, because that means you are on the right track.
And
So
of different levels, right?
if I would have learned that faster in my life, would have been definitely better, because I would have accomplished the stuff that today, it's my mission. I want to deliver stuff to the community that can impact life. I would have had more opportunities if I knew that sooner.
Yeah, excellent. So how can the circular community help you? What are you looking for? What are you working on? How can they contact you? What are you asking for, if anything?
I'm always looking for people that are in the community that I can engage with and learn from. If there are people that are working on interesting projects that, if they want to speak with my students, if they want to connect with my students, or if they know of projects that may need funding, I do invest. I'm in a group that does invest. But I also, the way I look at it, and the way I did it in banking is, if I can't help you, I'll try to help you another way, if I can't do it with my own group. So, I think just connect, take a look at my background, the things that I'm doing. If you like to do that sort of thing, what's so wonderful is that the people that come into my class and speak, they don't do it for remuneration. I mean, I give them a little gift. They do it because they like to do it. They want to pay it forward. They want to help the students.
Best way to learn.
And you know what? I always say to them, I don't want you to think, oh, I had to put a presentation together. I have to do this thing. I want them to think, oh, I can't wait to get there.
Yeah.
I could get away from my little business thing that I'm doing over here, and I can do something that's fun. That's how I like them to think about it.
Yeah, and share what you're learning is the best way to reinforce what you're learning. Great, that's excellent. Appreciate that. And Gianluca, what advice do you have to the community? What do they need to be doing these days? What would you like to say to them?
Reach out to this guy.
Okay.
And he will answer to a lot of questions. I think you understood. For transparency, Ken is a friend, so there's no other connection of any other interest. He's a genuine friend of our project, and I think he's like a rock star in this
I don't know about
this
that,
place.
but and I haven't even given him a gift yet. So.
Well, that's what taking these little journeys around the block are for. We have all different kinds of people in here, and we're happy to have you back again. So this has been really, really helpful.
Oh no, thank you so much. It's a great, sometimes it's good to just sit there and articulate your philosophy a little bit, and reach out to the community. And certainly, if I can help anyone, here's someone here that's a real pioneer, and I'm just blown away sometimes with the progress that he's made in such a short period of time. So don't forget about circular.
Well, that's awesome, and it's a great way to tie up what we're talking about today. We're talking about trust and how not just technology, but passion and hope can be part of it. But I think the greatest line today was you saying, distribute opportunities. That's such a great rally cry.
I want people that work with me to work for themselves, not for me. We work together, each one has a different goal, and each one has the right and the need to pursue some goal in life, So if we can distribute the opportunity to give away to those goals, is the win-win.
Yeah, and you have the tools now to do more. So this has been great. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us on another journey around the block. I'm David Cutler, and we'll see you next time.